Again, we should take our motivation, looking into our minds. Why are we here? What purpose do we make? The intention. We should try to correct our intention to make it this hour beneficial for our own minds and for our ability to benefit others. So we'll start off with the breathing meditation to bring our minds back home here and to our bodies and being aligned with our spiritual practice. So we watch the breath gently flowing through the tip of the nostrils. Gently flowing in and out. Like a gatekeeper watching the breath come and go. And now as we breathe, we're going to add these thoughts to our breath. Breathing in, I calm my body. Breathing out, I smile. Breathing in, I calm my body. Breathing out, I smile. Breathing in, I calm my body. Breathing out, I smile. Breathing in, I calm my body. Breathing out, I smile. Breathing in, I calm my body. Breathing out, I smile. Breathing in, I'm aware of the present moment. Breathing out, I know it's a wonderful moment. Breathing in, I'm aware of the present moment. Breathing out, I know it's a wonderful moment. Breathing in, I'm aware of the present moment. Breathing out, I know it's a wonderful moment. Breathing in, I'm aware of the present moment. Breathing out, I know it's a wonderful moment. Breathing in, I'm aware of the present moment. Breathing out, I know it's a wonderful moment. Just relax, enjoy the spacious awareness that arises from calming the mind. Nothing to do, nowhere to go. Just relaxed openness. Mind wanders, bring it back to that spacious, relaxed openness. And relax. So today we'll talk a little bit about the nature of mind. In Buddhism, we call it the Buddha nature. We all have Buddha nature. And when we practice Buddhism, that's our task, is to actualize our Buddha nature. It's not something we create or develop, we just become aware of it. And like I said before, the reason we're not aware of it now is like when there's a jar of sesame seeds on the table. It can sit there for 1,000 years and we'll never get the oil out of it. But when we apply it to a mechanical press, it presses the seeds and the oil comes out. So like that, the Buddha's methods are like that. They're the technology, the techniques to bring forth our Buddha nature. And this principle awareness of our mind is always with us. It's just that we're absorbed in the sense objects rather than the awareness that's aware of the sense objects. And that keeps us distracted from understanding our own nature. So you hear a sound and your mind goes off to one side. You have a thought and the mind goes into that thought. But what is it that's aware of those sounds and thoughts? It's the pure awareness itself, not. And so we need to become aware of these things and how the objects that appear to be outside of ourselves are actually appearing to this awareness in our mind, the mind itself. So the objects that we grasp at aren't out there. They're actually created by our mind. We impute upon them. I mean, we can all see, for example, a political party, and some of us like that political party and other ones dislike it strongly. There's no inherently existing political party out there. They're all imputed by our minds, those things that we grasp at. So we become aware of this mind that functions through the five senses and our mental consciousness, where we do our dreams and ideations, our visualizations. I had one teacher that used to give the analogy. So, what's the mind? Look at the front door of your house. You see the front door to your house. Did your mind go to the front door? Is the front door with you now? Or where did that come from and where does it go? It's just a visualization in your mind from a memory. Same thing with our own name. You don't sit around thinking, oh, I must remember my name every day. But when someone asks you your name, it comes spontaneously. And that's what we're trying to get to, is understanding that spontaneous awareness that arises in our mind. So I have a book that I like. It's called Why You're Not a Buddhist by Zanzar Khyentse Rinpoche. And it's a very interesting book because he says he was on a plane with a guy next to him, and it was a long flight, so he thought he'd engage him in some conversation. And he said the person looked at him and thought, well, you're a Buddhist monk, so you must be peaceful, you must be a vegetarian, you must be this and that, based on the construct of his idea of what a Buddhist is. And that brought Zanzar Khyentse's awareness to the fact that that has nothing to do with being a Buddhist. And so he points out here the main things that make one a Buddhist. One is a Buddhist if he or she accepts the following four truths. So the one time we talked about the Four Noble Truths, which are really about the truth of suffering, because it was the truth of suffering, the truth of causation of suffering, the truth of cessation of suffering, and the path to the cessation of that suffering. These four truths are the core of Buddhism. And the first truth is all compounded things are impermanent. We have to think about that. All compounded things, that's me, you, the earth, the stars, they're all impermanent. They arise from a cause, they appear vividly, and then they cease. When you investigate it on a gross level, we can see that in changeable things in our daily lives as we age. Even I just ate a meal, I'm not hungry now, and then, oh, in a couple of hours, I'll be hungry again. It changed again, it's impermanent. The second truth is that all emotions are pain. So that's relating to the truth of suffering. And we don't understand that pain is what gives us dis-ease in our mind. It may not be physical pain, but it's that discomfort. You know, we're not quite content with what's going on. We want to manipulate it a little bit. It's a little hot, it's a little cold. That's a subtle form of that pain, but it's like, why are you looking for that? What are you looking for in that? What's the satisfaction coming from it? And those feelings are with us, they're omnipresent. There's always a feeling. And one of three feelings, it's either pleasant, unpleasant, or indifferent. So those, all of them, even pleasant feelings, are in the nature of pain because they don't give ultimate satisfaction. The third truth is all things have no inherent existence. And as we talked the last time about the pen appears to us, we impute upon it the quality of being able to write with it. But when we show it to the dog who has a different karmic view, it becomes a chew toy. What is its true nature? A chew toy or a pen that we use to write? Neither of them is really its true nature. It's just a functioning thing that we attribute things to. So there's no inherent existence in a pen. And the fourth one is nirvana is beyond concepts. And that's because our mind can't grok the actual experience of enlightenment and nirvana. So we have no relationship to it. And everything we understand, we have a relationship with them. So that's an interesting point. So in this teaching, he goes into the life of the Buddha and says, so the Buddha was a prince brought up in a palace, guarded by his father from all the things we just talked about, pain, things. And everything was pleasant in the palace. The food was served on gold trays, beautiful serving girls and servants. He had his wife and his child. Everything's great. And then one day in his mind arose the thought, what's outside these walls? I should go see my kingdom. So he went out and he traveled through the fields and the beautiful streams and the mountains, and there were flowers, and his charioteer was taking him around. But his father had told the charioteer, make sure you don't, get him into any difficult situations, because he shouldn't understand that side of life. So on his way back to the palace on the first trip out, he saw an old lady crossing the street. And he asked the charioteer, what's the matter with her? She was hunched over on a cane. And his charioteer said, oh, she's old, master. She's an old person. And that's what happens when you get old, you can get crippled and things. And for Prince Siddhartha, it was a shock. It just hit him in the heart. Boom. It was like, what? This can happen to me? To my loved ones? So he went back to the palace and contemplated some of that experience in his mind. And then a couple of days later, when he contemplated that, he went out on it. He said, I need to experience more of my kingdom. So he went out again and he traveled around, saw the beautiful things. And then he came across a person who was sick on his way back to the palace. And the sick person was lying on a stretcher by the side of the road. And he said, what's the matter with that person? And his charioteer said, oh, master, he's ill. And he said, what's illness? And he said, oh, it's something that happens to us all. We all get ill. And he thought about that for a moment. And again, another impact to his heart. Like, what? I too could get ill. My family could get ill. That's a register. These are called the turning of his mind away from the worldly view. Then the third trip, he goes out and he visits the kingdom and sees the beautiful things that are out there. And then on his way back, he there's a funeral procession with a corpse. And he sees that, and then again he says, what's going on here, to his charioteer? And the charioteer said, oh, that's a dead person, master, and he's died, and they're taking him to the cemetery. Again, the shock hits him in the heart, and he is bowled over by the effect of impermanence and death. And he goes back to the palace, and then sometime later, after contemplating these truths, it turns his mind, and he goes out again. And on the fourth trip out, he sees, on his way back to the palace, he sees a sage, someone meditating quietly. And he said, what's up with that guy? He doesn't seem impacted by all of these terrible things that I've been seeing. And he said, oh, he's a practitioner who understands the nature of how things are. And so his mind is at ease with them. So he goes back to the palace, and then sometime later, there's a calm over the palace, and the people all fall asleep. And in that sleep, Siddhartha sees the beautiful courtesans are slumped over, their mouths open, slack-jawed, drool dribbling out. He goes, oh, that's not so attractive. And it just was a revulsion then to his whole life. And he leaves the palace and cuts his hair off, and he won't let his servant come with him to help him. And then he goes into the ascetic lifestyle. So for all of us, this is the purpose of the Buddhist path, is to get that experience. And that's why we meditate on these topics. It's not to become gruesome or someone said to me, morbid, but because these things are what turn the mind to practicing the Dharma. And we need that propulsion, that fuel to practice the Dharma consistently over time, to get into the deeper understandings that are required to move forward. Any questions so far? Deb, how are you doing out there? So to reiterate, Zonzo Kensi says, if you cannot accept that all compounded or fabricated things are impermanent, if you believe that there are some essential substance or a concept that is permanent, then you are not a Buddhist. If you cannot accept that all emotions are pain, if you believe that actually some emotions are purely pleasurable, then you're not a Buddhist.
Chuck?
Yes.
Says, that's interesting. It's not the things that happen, it's how our mind reacts or accepts them.
Exactly. Exactly. And most of the time we don't accept these things. For example, if someone passes, even in our organization, Lama Zopa passed suddenly, no one expected it, and it becomes a shock, And even though we are trained to supposedly understand impermanence, it's a big shock. And so those are the kind of things, But it was interesting. It's interesting that Marpa, the great translator who is the founder of the Kagyu school of Tibetan Buddhism, when his son Dharmadoti was killed, he fell off his horse and broke his neck. He was mighty upset. So his disciple said, well, you're the one that told us impermanence and accepting death isn't. And he said, yeah. He said, they said, this is an illusion, right? He said, yeah. He said, but this for me is a super illusion, so I have a reaction to it. So it doesn't mean that you become inhuman, but the point is that you're aware of that. So if we cannot accept that all phenomena are illusory and empty, if you believe that certain things do exist inherently, then you're not a Buddhist. And if you think that enlightenment exists within the spheres of time, space, and power, then you're not a Buddhist. He said it's not necessary to constantly and endlessly be mindful of these four truths, but they must reside in your mind. You don't walk around continuously thinking about these things, but they're in the back of your mind. And I have another teacher that gives the analogy that's if we stand up, when we stand up, we don't have to think about gravity, but we know it's there. We don't have to contemplate, oh, there's gravity pulling me back, holding me down on the earth so I don't float away. But it's there, isn't it? And we don't have to think about it, but it's there, it functions. And so like that, that's what he's saying. You need to have these things in the back of your mind so that you understand them, but that they don't have to be like consciously aware of them all the time. Any other questions so far? This is interesting. Yeah, okay. Never know. Another thing he talks about is how to avoid these things, we've used distractions. In our everyday lives, we have the impulse to shield ourselves and others from the truth. We've become impervious to obvious signs of decay. We encourage ourselves by not dwelling on it and by employing positive affirmations. We celebrate our birthdays by blowing out candles, ignoring the fact that the extinguished candles could equally be seen as a reminder that we are impermanent and closer to death. We celebrate the new year with firecrackers and champagne, distracting ourselves from the fact that the old year will never come back and the new year is filled with uncertainty. Anything can happen. When that anything is displeasing, we deliberately divert our attention. Like the mother distracts the child with rattles and toys. If we feel down, we go shopping. We treat ourselves. We go to the cinema. We build fantasies and aim for lifetime achievements, such as the house at the beach, trophies, early retirement, nice cars, good friends, family, fame, making it into the Guinness Book of Records. Later in life, we want a devoted companion with whom we can take a cruise or raise purebred poodles. Magazines and television induce and reinforce such models for happiness and success, even inventing new illusions to trap us. These notions of success are our grown-up baby rattles. Hardly anything we do in the course of our day, neither in our thoughts nor in our actions, indicate that we are aware of how fragile life is. We spend our time doing things like waiting at the multiplex for a bad movie to start, or rushing home to watch reality TV. As we sit watching commercials, waiting, our time in this life ebbs away. So I'll just finish up here with what the Buddha found. When he went off and became an ascetic and started meditating, he sat on a patch of kusa grass beneath the Bodhi tree. After a long time of contemplation, he came to the realization that all form, including our flesh and bones, and all our emotions and all our perceptions, are assembled. They're a product of two or more things coming together. And when any two components or more come together, we have the existence of a new phenomena emerges. Like wood becomes a table, water and leaves become tea, fear and devotion, and the Savior becomes God. This end product doesn't have an existence independent of its parts. Believing it truly exists independently is the greatest deception. Meaning it truly exists independently, meaning that while the parts are undergoing a change, just by meeting, their characters changed, and then together they have become something else. That we recognize they are compounded. And he realized that this applies not only to the human experience, but to all matter, the entire world, the universe, because everything is interdependent, becomes subject to change. And here he goes on to talk about how the continents 300 million years ago was one big continent, and then they shifted and moved into the present condition. But we know from earthquakes and such that the continents are continually moving. So he had wakened from the illusion of permanence and gives us a reason to refer to him as Buddha, the awakened one. Now, 2,500 years later, we see what he has discovered and taught in a priceless treasure that has inspired millions of either both educated and illiterate, rich and poor, from King Ashoka to Allen Ginsberg, to Kubla Khan to Gandhi, from His Holiness the Dalai Lama to the Beastie Boys. On the other hand, if Siddhartha were here today, he would be a little disappointed because, for the most part, his discoveries lie fallow. So when he realized this, Prince Siddhartha no longer needed or wanted the elixir from immortality. By realizing that all things are assembled and deconstructed, deconstruction is infinite, and not one of the components and all creation exists in an autonomous, permanent, pure state, he was liberated. Anything that is put together, which we now understand to be everything, and its impermanent nature, are bound together as one. Just like water and an ice cube. When we put an ice cube in our drink, we get both. Just so, when Siddhartha looked at someone walking around, even the healthiest person, he saw that person as both simultaneously living and disintegrating. We might think that's a funny way, sounds like a funny way to live, but it can be an amazing ride to see both sides. There might be great satisfaction. Seeing things in that way, they begin to dissolve all around us. Your perceptions of phenomena transform and in a way become clearer. It is easy to see how people get caught up in the roller coaster, and you naturally have compassion for them. One of the reasons you have compassion is that impermanence is so obvious, yet they don't see it. So I'll stop there if anybody has any questions or would like to comment. We got time now for a few minutes. Nothing. Stunned silence. But that's the best part, isn't it? Because you get to see someone like the Dalai Lama who actually lives this view, and yet he's the happiest person we know. So it's not like a morbid thing. That's the whole point. It's a reality test. And once you understand reality, you're not freaked out by it because you understand how it functions. How you doing, Deb? Everything good? No, it's not denial. Yeah, you need to take care of everything. And it's not to be, it's just to have that awareness of how things actually are, but not to deny them. Yeah, if you have illness, if you have grief, you need to experience it and express it. And the more you can delve into expressing it, then the better it opens up. And the same thing with healing. Your body is focusing on healing, getting the energies into your body that are necessary to heal the body after illness. Because you don't want to deny the physical reality of your life, but what you want to understand is that your mind's tricking you to think that it's permanent. That's all. We think it's permanent and they will stay that way. That's all. You're just becoming aware that that's not the case. So if you'd like, I have what I consider one of the best meditations to do every day by Thich Nhat Hanh, and it addresses these very subjects. It's quite easy to do. It's a breathing meditation like we were doing earlier. And so we could take our meditation posture if no one has anything else to add right now. We'll just watch the breath for a moment, calming the mind again, centering. Again, we mount the thoughts on our breathing. Knowing I will get old, I breathe in. Knowing I can't escape old age, I breathe out. Knowing I'll get old, I breathe in. Knowing I can't escape old age, I breathe out. Knowing I'll get old, I breathe in. Knowing I can't escape old age, I breathe out. Knowing I will get old, I breathe in. Knowing I can't escape old age, I breathe out. Knowing I'll get old, I breathe in. Knowing I can't escape old age, I breathe out. Knowing I'll get sick, I breathe in. Knowing I can't escape sickness, I breathe out. Knowing I'll get sick, I breathe in. Knowing I can't escape sickness, I breathe out. Knowing I'll get sick, I breathe in. Knowing I can't escape sickness, I breathe out. Knowing I'll get sick, I breathe in. Knowing I can't escape sickness, I breathe out. Knowing I get sick, I breathe in. Knowing I can't escape sickness, I breathe out. Knowing I will die, I breathe in. Knowing I can't escape death, I breathe out. Knowing I will die, I breathe in. Knowing I can't escape death, I breathe out. Knowing I'll die, I breathe in. Knowing I can't escape death, I breathe out. Knowing I'll die, I breathe in. Knowing I can't escape death, I breathe out. Knowing that one day I'll have to abandon all the things that I cherish today, I breathe in. Knowing I can't escape having to abandon all the things that I cherish today, I breathe out. Knowing that one day I'll have to abandon all the things that I cherish today, I breathe in. Knowing I can't escape having to abandon all the things that I cherish today, I breathe out. Knowing that one day I have to abandon all the things that I cherish today, I breathe in. Knowing I can't escape having to abandon all the things that I cherish today, I breathe out. Knowing that one day I have to abandon all the things that I cherish today, I breathe in. Knowing I can't escape having to abandon all the things that I cherish today, I breathe out. Knowing that my actions are my only belongings, I breathe in. Knowing I can't escape the consequences of my actions, I breathe out. Knowing that my actions are my only belongings, I breathe in. Knowing I can't escape the consequences of my actions, I breathe out. Knowing that my actions are my only belongings, I breathe in. Knowing I cannot escape the consequences of my actions, I breathe out. Knowing that my actions are my only belongings, I breathe in. Knowing I cannot escape the consequences of my actions, I breathe out. Determined to live my days deeply in mindfulness, I breathe in. Seeing the joy and benefit of living mindfully, I breathe out. Determined to live my days deeply in mindfulness, I breathe in. Seeing the joy and benefit of living mindfully, I breathe out. Determined to live my days deeply in mindfulness, I breathe in. Seeing the joy and benefit of living mindfully, I breathe out. Determined to live my days deeply in mindfulness, I breathe in. Seeing the joy and benefit of living mindfully, I breathe out. Vowing to offer joy each day to my beloved, I breathe in. Vowing to ease the pain of my beloved, I breathe out. Vowing to offer joy each day to my beloved, I breathe in. Vowing each day to ease the pain of my beloved, I breathe out. Vowing each day, I offer joy to my beloved and breathe in. Vowing to ease the pain of my beloved, I breathe out. Vowing to offer joy each day to my beloved, I breathe in. Vowing to ease the pain of my beloved, I breathe out. So Thich Nhat Hanh gives a commentary to this practice that I find really useful. This exercise helps us come face to face with anxieties and fears that lie deep in our subconscious, and that transforms them. They transform these things called latent tendencies. In principle, we all know very well that we cannot avoid growing old, falling sick, dying, being separated from those that we love. But we do not want to give our attention to these things. We do not want to be in touch with the anxiety and fear, but prefer to let them lie deeply in our minds. That is why they are called latent tendencies. It literally means lying asleep along with. But although they are lying asleep in our hearts, they still follow us and secretly influence our whole way of thinking, speaking, and acting. We can see this when we see and hear people speaking about or are ourselves witness to old age, sickness, death, and separation from loved ones. These latent tendencies in us are watered and become more deeply entrenched, along with our other sorrows, longings, hatreds, and angers. Because we are not able to resolve these latent tendencies, we repress them, and they grow stagnant and cause sickness whose symptoms can be recognized in everything we do. We must learn a different way to treat these latent tendencies. The Buddha himself taught this exercise and advised his followers to practice it every day. Buddha taught that rather than repressing our fears and anxieties, we should invite them into our consciousness, recognize them, welcome them. When we begin to practice conscious breathing, mindfulness is lit up within us. In that gentle light, if we simply acknowledge the presence of our fears and bring them to the surface and then smile to them, as we would smile to an old friend, quite naturally, they will lose some of their energy. When once again they return to our subconscious, they will be much weaker. If we practice every day, they will continue to grow weaker. The circulation of feelings in our consciousness under the light of mindfulness will prevent them from stagnation. We'll see into their essence, and there will be more manifestation of the former, no more manifestations of the former mental and physical sicknesses. The latent tendencies will have been transformed. This exercise also helps us to live in the present moment in a joyous, calm, and awakened way. Right in this moment, we will come to understand that we are able to bring joy to those in our company. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for attending. And we should dedicate any beneficial energy we receive from this time together and dedicate it to the benefit of all living beings. Think, I'm never jealous, I always rejoice. I'm never jealous, I always rejoice. I'm never jealous, I always rejoice. All right, thank you so much.